Enough general principles. It might be that examples can give you the best feel for how these determinations might shake out. Let's look at ice cream. There's been at least 2 cases where the outcome turned on whether store-bought ice cream was the relevant product market or something smaller. In the pictures below, we have a Ben & Jerry's super premium ice cream, and on the right, we have something called American House Vanilla. Ounce for ounce, American House sells for a fraction of Ben & Jerry's. The question in these cases was whether ice cream, something like Ben & Jerry's, should be lumped with those of American House. To answer this question, it's good to start with a nice quote from the U.S. authorities. There, that's a nice phrase. Demand-side substitution, and another, willingness to switch in response to changes in price. Do you think customers for Ben & Jerry's would keep their super premium ice cream despite a substantial price increase? Or would they switch to cheesecake, or chocolate chip cookies, or even cheaper ice cream? At this point, I can't resist going back to a graph. Remember this one? I used it to show the differences amongst Uber riders in willingness to pay for that service. But this was a simplification. The graph should have looked like this. What's the difference between the two, aside from the shaky drawing style and the general shape? One very important difference is its description of how people in the upper left-hand part of the curve react to price increases. The original graph assumes that when prices go up, people stop buying at a constant rate. That's why the line is straight. If you recall, every time the price for Uber went up 10 pesos, 700 people stopped using the service. But that's not what happens in most instances. As prices go up, the dropout rate starts to decrease in a proportional fashion. For instance, perhaps when prices increase from 170 to 180, 700 drop out. But then, when they go from 180 to 190, only 500 drop out. And then, when they go from 190 to 200, we see only 400 dropouts. Why does this trend seem to happen? It's because as you isolate this group of people, you find that they value money less and less. While it could be for many reasons, one certainly involves the phrase money to burn. There are people so rich that a 1,000 peso bill has almost no meaning to them. People at this end of the curve are far less likely to switch in the event of a 5 to 10% increase than more price-sensitive consumers farther down the curve. This tendency was summarized well in a recent paper by a group of economists. Here the authors used fashion goods and business class seats, but the same tendencies apply whether it be with respect to super premium ice cream, Starbucks coffee, or specialized craft beer. It was this kind of thinking that led the United States Federal Trade Commission to block a merger between two of the largest sellers of super premium ice cream in the 1990s. And the US DOJ, when looking at mergers between beer makers, have oftentimes broken beer down into various markets based on their premium status. Still, this type of thinking has its vociferous critics. Some accuse the DOJ and the FTC of creating monopolies where none exist by slicing up markets into smaller and smaller segments. And recently, we have seen courts push back on this theory. For instance, the FTC a few years ago tried to carve out a smaller market of healthy food stores from a product market consisting of normal supermarkets. The idea was that wealthy health nuts would keep going back to these stores regardless of price increases. The court disagreed with this, finding that the normal supermarket chains were increasingly offering healthy choices and that consumers were willing to cross-shop for the best combination of health and price. So again, we have a lack of certainty. But that's what makes competition law fun.